What's up, man?
Hey, can I bring this up a little bit? Is that okay? Okay. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you remember me at all?
No.
Okay. So can I ask a quick synopsis of what you think the prescription is for society today for men? In a short version, what do you think they should do to be successful with women?
To be successful with women,
Yeah.
okay, are we talking about like getting a girl for a long-term relationship, just to get laid? What are we talking about?
Well,
here?
I think the only reason should be for a long-term relationship and marriage. I mean, that's Jesus Christ founded it, but I'm just curious what your prescription is.
Well, I've talked about this. I think guys have to have certain things in place, right, before they want to get into a long-term relationship. It's 5 things. So I would say 100K per year, 6 figures a year, 6 months to 1 year of savings, be in good shape, have at least 50 partners, right? Sexual body count.
All right, and then is that the last one?
And then there's one more, but
Listen, it says Christian fan confronts Myron from Fresh and Fit for leading him astray. I've seen many people address this, of course. I'm going to give you guys my take here on this video. Let's keep listening.
that's fine. You could go ahead and
Okay.
engage with what I've said so far.
So the reason I asked that is I've watched almost every single podcast you ever did for about a year and a half. So much so that I bought into a lot of the things that you said. And for about 2 years, it led me astray and significantly damaged my personal life, including relationships.
How did it lead you astray?
Well, you told me to go sleep with a bunch of women and date multiple women at the same time, which I did. And it significantly damaged my life. And it wasn't until I actually turned around and started listening to Jesus Christ that I was saved. Now I'm happily married. I have one child now with another one on the way, and I've never felt happier.
So a question for you. You said you got out there dating and meeting women and stuff like
Yep.
that. And then you said that it kind of hurt you.
Yeah.
How did it hurt you specifically? Did you like just start? What happened specifically?
Well, I started warring against my own flesh. It's like trying to fill an empty void. There's a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man that can only be filled by God alone. Anything else you try to fill with that's not going to satisfy it.
Sure.
And I tried to do it with sex.
Okay. There's a lot happening here in this video. This is going to be a highly nuanced conversation. I'll be straight up with my firm stance. If you're a man who identifies as a follower of Christ, if you believe in Jesus, you believe in God, then you should not be getting your advice on how to navigate the dating market for the sole purpose of finding a Christian wife, a wife who believes like you, from Myron Gaines. And I want to follow that up with this because I don't think people really understand, because I've said this before, right? I've said this before. When it comes to you achieving a particular goal in this life, you have to listen to or get advice from people who have the same shared values as you. The problem with this conversation that's been had right now is it's highly volatile, as in like people feel very strongly about Myron and they feel very strongly about their belief. But the truth is, Myron could have helped this man in certain aspects of his life, right? In a positive way. And I really do mean that. For example, the other things that he mentioned about getting in shape, the other things that he mentioned about being somebody who works hard. He's talked about certain values and understanding the modern dating market. Those things are true. However, depending on your goals in life, depending on what you want out of life, and in this case, it seems like he eventually wanted, maybe that was different at one point, which just points to someone's Christian life and them finding themselves going through their hurdles, so on and so forth. But when it comes to finding a Christian wife, Myron Gaines wouldn't help you with that because he's not someone who identifies as Christian, plain and simple. Are you guys following me here? This is like the whole confusion with tonight's conversation. You know, when you have multiple people on a panel and most of them are not married, but they're giving some good dating advice. But the problem is like 60 to 70% of the audience wants marriage. But the people who are giving the advice aren't married. Now, there are areas where they're going to be correct. But when it comes to mimicking their values and their end goal in life, you're not going to be happy. I don't believe as a Christian that the goal should be for you to sleep with 50 women. Not only does it contradict my own beliefs as a Christian, but I just think that's very absurd to say. And my final point, one of the issues that I see a lot with Christians, and this is just me plainly speaking, guys, and if you like this type of like, I call it like church brew, that's what I'm going to call it. Click the link pin to the top of the comment section. You can follow my church brew channel where I'll address Christian topics. And these will be from a personal perspective. I'm not your guide, leader. I'm not the perfect Christian at all. No. This is if you care about my thoughts and stances and what I believe based on my study of the scriptures, so on and so forth. I know a few of you have actually asked for that. But one thing that Christians find very hard to accept is that somebody just doesn't want to be Christian. I know this because I've experienced this going door to door. I grew up in the church. You go door to door and accepting that somebody's like, nope, I don't believe in that. And when they don't believe in that, they will have different goals. And to other people, it's like, you should value this thing too. They're like, no. And they're allowed to say no. Right? And at that point, what does your Bible say? It says, dust off your sandals, don't cast your pearl amongst swine. But there's this need to just be in disbelief that somebody may not accept the gospel. Any questions you guys have? Any thoughts? Just comment down below.
Yeah. So, would it be fair? How'd you meet your wife?
We actually had the #1 dating podcast in North and South Carolina called Who Hurt You Podcast.
Okay.
And I'm also friends with Fresh. I know him very well. I texted him before I came here.
Yeah.
And I know pretty much everyone on your crew. But I was a heavy follower, and you actually inspired me to start the podcast, and I realized what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah. So, would it be fair to say that when you went through that experience, you were able to identify characteristics that you probably found as unredeemable and you probably wouldn't want to commit to, right?
In what way?
Well, when you were seeing these women, right, you probably started seeing patterns in how they behave, how they speak or whatever. Maybe they're not qualified to be a wife. Because the thing is, right?
Well, I don't need that. I have the Bible for that. It tells me what to look for.
Yeah, but the thing is that you were able, and again, you're probably not going to notice it, but when you dated and dealt with all these women, you probably were able to identify characteristics that you were not fond of, or characteristics that would make a woman not a good candidate for a long-term relationship. And I think half the game is figuring out which girls don't qualify for marriage versus which ones that do. And clearly you learned a skill set on how to become attractive and get women, and then you're able to identify the things that you like versus the things that you don't like. And that only comes a lot of times with experience. Now look, if a guy can go ahead and, find a woman as a virgin and be attractive and be able to understand how to navigate that, that's great in modern times. But the reality is a lot of guys don't. And I mean, even in your success story, you had to go through a lot of bad women to be able to identify your current wife as the one. So failures are good. They're good.
Yeah, failures, failures in the sense of socioeconomic or maybe even relationship failures could be good. But there's a difference with what I'm saying. I'm saying that we're warned against our soul. Jesus Christ commands us to marry one woman. That's it.
Sure.
And what you were causing me to do was sin against myself. And that's the point I'm trying to get to. It's immoral.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take personal responsibility, bro. Because here's the reality.
No, I do, 100%.
Yeah, so
very publicly, I have in front of over
why
40,000 people. I've done that.
Yeah, great. But the point I'm trying to make is I teach guys a skill set, right? If I give you a gun and you shoot yourself in the foot, is that my fault? If I taught you how to properly use it, how to disarm it, disassemble it, how to load the magazine in properly, all that. If I give you the skill set, then you shoot yourself in the foot, right? Is that really my fault? No, I just armed.
See, guys, there are a lot of people who I look up to who don't see things the way I see them. Listening to Myron just say, if I give you a gun, and by the way, I say that because people think to themselves, I only listen to people who identify the same way I do in every part of my life. No. I don't think that's the way life works. But when it comes to hearing him try to justify a man having to sleep with 50 just to be able to figure out what a good wife is, that's just crazy. I mean, think of the example he just used. You have a gun. He teaches you how to use it. If you shoot yourself in the foot, then is it his fault? This is the problem with that. We've seen Myron and Fresh shoot themselves in the foot multiple times. What am I trying to say? The results of sleeping around, and I've said this, sleeping around is detrimental to both men and women. That is what I believe. And you don't have to spend too much time doing research on what's resulted from the mindset that Myron is saying most men should have when they're pursuing women, right? What have you seen? Babies here, chaos there, lack of trust, so on and so forth. Now, there are men who still appreciate them for the value that they get from them, and for other people, it's like, how can you get possible value? People get different value from different people, even people who you may disagree with, or motivation. However, from what we have seen, and even a lot of their fans would be very honest with this, they're not the example of how to properly handle a gun. If a gun represents handling women and game, they're in fact probably one of the best examples of what not to do, especially if you're a public figure. Don't get caught up, don't get exposed, so on and so forth. The man who saw this opportunity probably said, I need to do this, and probably felt the calling. And if he did, so be it. I do, however, think that if you went back to the time when he was listening to Fresh and Fit and applying everything that they said to the T, his goals were different back then. I don't think his goals were to find a Christian wife. And if those were his goals, well, I hope that men know that you can't listen to people when it comes to those type of really, really huge decisions in your life who don't have what you have or don't share the same values you do. Right? If the values aren't matching, then that's not what you want to go for. Well, last thing here, I know I'm kind of rambling, it's whatever, I don't care. What I think is really, really also disingenuous about this whole setup, because I know people are looking at this and they're like, this guy's a good Christian guy, and we were thankful that he's out here calling Myron out. This is the same university that, or I think it's a college campus, where we've seen lesbians come on and try to justify why the patriarchy is this. I mean, this isn't a Christian crowd that's cheering. They're just like to see opposition on somebody who they disagree with. If we're having a genuine conversation here, and even other people, they may look and say, oh yeah, this is wrong, and may cheer, yeah, he got destroyed. But if you look at their lives and the people that they hold close to them, they're living the same type of reckless life.
You can't come back and get mad.
No,
and
you didn't
say,
argue with that. I became attractive when I followed Jesus. That was it.
Oh, okay. Now it's changing the story.
No, I'm not changing any story. It's one thing.
I became attractive when I followed Jesus. See, this is where, like, I can't enter into that delusional world where people think only Christian men are attractive. There's no way you could believe that. Or people who think that the only way you can have a healthy marriage is if you're a Christian, when people have been marrying for thousands and thousands and thousands of years who have identified as other religions. The problem is that if we were God, we would strictly maintain happiness and the benefits of a good marriage to only Christians. But God's better than that. He's more good than you. He has more mercy for anybody who's participating in this conversation than me, than you. And it's like everything else, right? If you respect the laws of health and nature, God blesses that. We see and look around like, hey, it's not only the Christians that can lose weight, because the Christians are also going through some of the same things. So the whole, like, I became attractive when I gave my heart to Jesus, to me is like one of those kind of cheesy blanket Christian statements that Christians would probably cheer to. I think a better statement, at least for myself, is I became attractive to the right woman, my wife, who also values Christianity, who also identifies as Christian, right? I've been attractive to other women, but that didn't serve my ultimate goal.
I became attractive when I followed Jesus. That was it.
Oh, okay. Now it's changing the story.
No, I'm not changing any story. It's one thing to be attractive in the sense of gaining sexual partners, but it's a completely different thing to be attractive to someone that wants to marry you and spend their life with you and have kids with you. Those are two completely different sexual attractions. If I walk in here looking like Thor, I'm 6'2" and shredded, obviously I'm going to be attractive to women, but it doesn't mean that that's a relationship that produces value for me and my family.
And again, everyone is different, right? For you, it took some time, and you found God, and you shifted. But the reality is I gave you the skill set, and then you choose what you want to do. That's up to you, and you made that decision, not me. I just taught you what to do,
exactly.
how to do it.
It's on me 100%. I'm not placing blame on you. But what I'm telling you, from someone that listens to you, I'm trying to let you know what happens when you speak to people and tell them to do these things.
Here's the other thing, too. like now you're operating with 20/20 hindsight. You went through it, you experienced
Correct.
it, you
That's
know.
true.
A lot of guys need to get their hand burned sometimes to figure out how things work. Because let's be
Why?
honest, men are very stubborn.
Why do
So-
they need to do that? If they find a God-fearing woman, they wouldn't do half the stuff you're talking about.
Well, they got. Here's the thing: finding a God-fearing woman in today's day and age is a lot harder said than done.
I did it,
Yeah, it's a lot harder.
and so
said
did
than
everyone
done.
in my whole family. So it's not that hard.
It's challenging. It's challenging. But all things are possible, right, with God. But it's challenging. And that's just the honest truth.
Yeah, that's anecdotal from your perspective. But again, you learned the skill set. You were able to find a wife, and I'm happy about that. But you got to take a little bit of accountability here and understand that you basically got a loaded gun and shot yourself in the foot, and you're trying
Correct.
to blame me for it.
No, I'm not blaming you. Like I said, I take accountability.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
Okay.
But look, nothing against you. Like I said, I've hung out with Fresh 8 or 9 times recently. I love them, and I think your heart is in the right place. But I just wanted to give you from someone that actually listened to what you were saying to do, read your book, and it didn't work. That's all I was trying to do for you.
I think the lesson here, again, and I have to stress this, you have to know yourself. You have to stand firm in yourself. And if you're unsure, sometimes you make mistakes, right? But if you know yourself, if you know your ultimate goal and you know you want a woman who's also Christian, and you get the gun, figuratively speaking, from Myron, then you're definitely going to shoot yourself in the foot, because that gun isn't going to produce the outcome that you want. And this topic about sex, it's very challenging for a man. This topic about sexual morality, I truly do believe, and I don't think many guys think about this enough, and I'm talking about men who value their walk with Christ and they identify as Christian, is that God asks you to do certain things, not just because he wants to keep you from having a good time. A lot of the times it's because those things that he's keeping you from, advising you to stay away from, will hurt you in the long run, especially if your goal is for you to have a healthy family and be with one person for the rest of your life. If you want to be more of that person, then you definitely don't want to go out and smash as many women as possible. I mean, there's people in the Bible who've had thousands of wives, and they've suffered the consequence. People usually point out people like David and Solomon. Solomon was actually advised to not have as many wives as he did, and he did, and they led him astray. Now, was that the end of the world for him or David? No. While they still confessed and found God in the end, there was a lot to pay, a lot of consequences. One of the toughest things, if I remember when I was young, was realizing, this one is tough, that for most Christian men today, most of the women they will find in church will have more sexual partners than they did, will have had more sexual experiences than they did. And don't get me wrong, that is not a justification for you to go out here and not practice sexual discipline as a man of God. That thought is unsettling for a lot of men. Overall, I'm glad to hear that my man here found his way. And for a man who wants a relationship that's centered on Christ, it's good that he stopped listening to Myron's advice, because that's not where that's going to get you. Of course, guys, I'm curious to know, what do you think? Leave your comments down below. Of course, don't forget to check out the link pinned to the top of the comment section. Check out my Church Brew channel. Just going to, try to upload a little bit here and there. Appreciate you. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.